Hello, my name is Marissa Walker. I have ADHD and I am an indie author. If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you are likewise neurodivergent or think that you might be. Either way, you are welcome here, and I hope some of the tricks and tips that I can give you will be helpful for you in your author journey. Unlike some people who have a lot of editing and things in their videos, I am actually going to try and do my videos just as one long video, including mistakes. The reason why I want to do that is because one of the issues that people who have ADHD often struggle with is the idea of being perfect every single time. When I tell you I worked on the introduction and just figuring out my first few lines multiple times, I mean it. The thing is, if you have ADHD, one of the biggest things, if you're suffering from perfectionistic traits like myself, or maybe a little bit of that RSD, rejection sensitivity, it's important that you still put yourself out there. It can be hard because we don't always have the best reception when we maybe make a social mistake or are a little too much for some people. But this is a space where you can be much, and I'm going to be myself, unmasked, happy, and authentic, and share that version of me with you. Hopefully that's okay with you, and if it's not, I kindly ask you move on and find someone else who makes you happy watching videos, because the whole point of this is love, support, and finding each other. When I was looking at a bunch of the people who are blogging and vlogging online for being an indie author, one thing I didn't see was anyone really talking about being ADHD. Now, there may be other people out there who are, and I just haven't found those videos, but I figured that I would talk about my experience as an ADHD person who is also an indie author, and how some of the struggles and things for us as neurodivergents can make certain tasks a little bit more difficult or a little different than maybe someone who's neurotypical sitting down to write. So, in the realm of authenticity, we will not have a lot of cuts and edits. You will just get the authentic me, mistakes and all. This is not a final manuscript, so we don't have to worry too much about editing. Consider my videos a rough draft. The joy of rough drafts is actually the first thing that I want to talk about. I figured a rough draft was a perfect starting point for a vlog about being an ADHD author. Now, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got for my writing from not from another human being, but from, well, still a human being, but not from someone directly, but from listening to writing advice or reading writing advice, which I have read a plethora of books on writing advice. But one of the best ones that I ever read, one of the best pieces that really helped me as an ADHD author, was write the first draft for yourself. Every other draft is for everyone else. Now, that may not be the perfect quote, but it was from Stephen King's On Writing. And that phrase has kind of been stuck in my head ever since. I had a point in high school, and I want to be clear, I have always wanted to be an author. I was writing before I could write, doing little doodles and scribbles and things on the page. And so it's always been a priority for me to be an author, to write, to tell my stories. And at one point in high school, when I was really working on trying to make sure that my grammar was right and my storytelling was right and focusing on the idea of being published, what happened is I started losing the plot, not of the stories, but losing my own personal plot of what the point of telling these stories was. Now, personally, I think the most important thing about writing stories is telling your story your way with your voice. It's actually one of the reasons why I decided to go indie and why I love so many indie authors who are out there. The authenticity of voice that comes through is just incredible. And you can hear stories that you may not actually get in a traditional publishing setting from people of different minorities, different walks of life, and different views. And so I love the indie publishing world. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I am very happy and proud to be a part of that and to have made some incredible friends along the way. So, back to the first draft thing. When you have ADHD, sometimes it's hard to focus on things, and sometimes it's often hard to focus on things. But first drafts should not be something that you are trying to make perfect. This is just my opinion again, but If you're ADHD and you get focused and overwhelmed by the idea of trying to have something be perfect, you're so focused on getting it right that you miss the heart and the feeling of a story. You're so focused on making sure that the grammar is right and the spelling is right, and will it be liked? Will people like it? And having all of those questions running around in your head. Yes, we all have those questions, but when you are writing the story for the first draft, I think the most important thing there is to forget all of those questions. Shove them into a box, shove them out of your mind as much as you can. Because yes, some of us who have ADHD have those little voices kind of always going on in our heads. Send them off as much as you can and say, this one's for me. It is okay to be selfish with your writing and with your first draft. Remember that you are doing this because you want to tell a story, because you are trying to put yourself, your story into words, capture the essence of whatever it is you're trying to say. And whether that is some epic sweeping fantasy or just a coming of age story that is told with poignancy and heart, the story is the important thing. Your story with your voice is the important thing. That should be your focus for the first draft. And I say should, I think should is a dirty word personally because it means living up to certain social expectations and other things like that. But in this particular case, it's my opinion that it should be for you. It should be for your heart and for you. Ways to help make that happen. Focusing on a first draft, if you are ADHD, you dopamine chase. Dopamine chasing is definitely something that people who have ADHD do, and we do it on a fairly regular basis. When you are writing your first draft, there are a couple tips and tricks that I will say I have found very helpful for keeping that dopamine flowing while you are writing. The first thing is, if there's a scene that you're stuck on, don't write it. I know that sounds like crazy advice for first draft, but if there's a scene that you are stuck on, don't write it. Put in brackets, in bold, fight scene here, or love scene here, or this character goes off somewhere, figure it out later. Put it in bold, put it in brackets, that way it doesn't end up in a later draft. Make it really obvious, and then go on to your next piece. Leave behind the thing that's clogging you up so that you don't lose that wonderful dopamine high and that chase, and just keep going. Keep writing what is making you happy to write, what you are in the mood to write, and keep going. The other option is if you are writing and you don't necessarily know what's supposed to go there, you can jump to the next scene that's going to come. And you can do that by popping a couple cute little asterisks there and then going to your next scene. Does this work for everyone? No. However, it gives you a little bit of freedom to continue on and chase that dopamine, chase the good feeling, chase the storytelling further where you want to be with your story and get that joy and fulfillment out of the actual process of writing it. If you do it that way, to me, and what I have found is you're less likely to get caught up on not having it, not knowing, not having it there for you to be able to go, oh, I've got everything there in the first draft. Everything is fine. Everything is perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect on the first draft. It just has to be you. And that means it's okay to put in paragraphs, this happens here, or this character goes off, or to just put a couple asterisks if you're still figuring things out. Write it for you. Write it happy and keep chasing that dopamine as you go forward. The other thing is, if you're writing that first draft, it's okay to put notes in the margin. I have actually switched over to writing. I write a lot of my first drafts by hand. I understand that is not for everyone, but I get a little dopamine hit from those pretty notebooks that I end up writing in, and I actually find it genuinely helpful to write on only one side of the page. It makes me feel like I'm making more progress, which also gives a little bit of the dopamine, but it leaves space blank on the other side for me to come back, add in notes, change something, go, okay, this dialogue should be here, so that when I'm writing that first draft, if I get 4 or 5 pages ahead and go, ooh, I should have had this character mention something about this so that it goes there, I can pop back a couple pages and I've got an entire page of blank space that I can use in order to fill those things in without having to, shoehorn it in or put an extra piece of paper in that ends up getting lost later, or that you have to tape in and then you don't like the aesthetics of that, which if you do, that's totally okay. It's fun to have fun little Reckitt journals, but I personally love having that blank page that I can then fill with notes, doodles, drawings, definitions, alternatives. And the cool thing is, that's not just during your first draft. You can write those notes in before going to your second draft. Now, if you are typing on the computer for your draft, it's a little bit different because you can just take your cursor and go back to the point that you want to add something in. But again, it stands that you can have that pause. Because I like writing by hand, I like having that extra page. So if you are writing your first draft and you like to get a little bit of extra dopamine, use a notebook that you love, but only write on one half of it and then leave room to be able to come back. It's something that works for me, and it may or may not work for you. But if you haven't given it a try before and you feel like you need a little something extra, give it a try in your writing and see how it goes. Also, let me know in the comments if it works well for you or what you think about some of those tips and suggestions. Now, when you're going on to future drafts, you can look off of either a printed copy of your paper, a printed copy of your type draft, or the little notebook. I love having the little notebook next to me, and I sit there typing, catching up on things, looking over the notebook, and off of those notes that I popped into the pages in between. If you have a typed draft, you can do the same thing by printing it out and then writing the notes in the margin and stuff later. But I think to sum everything up and go back, the most important thing about your first draft is it should be for you. Write it for you, take the pauses where you need to, do inserts, keep going. And while plotting is wonderful, and if that works for you, that is fantastic, it is also okay to do the pantsing or pantster, be a pantster. Whether you fly by the seat of your pants in your writing or you plot everything out ahead of time, it is up to you which task and which way works for you. Being ADHD, the way that works best for me is a combination of the two. I like writing by the seat of my pants because I get that dopamine and continue on. I get to the end of the story. I get to find out what's happening next. I love it. I get to explore the characters as I'm going, and it's fantastic. But I also sometimes write out little points of, okay, these are the things that need to happen and what order. It may not be a chapter by chapter plotting that some people do, but it is a loose outline. If I want to go back afterwards for a second or third draft, that's usually where I start breaking things down for how they work in individual chapters. But for that first draft for me, I like to just kind of go with it. Take my key scenes that I have in my head, write them out. And I tend to write in relative chronological order, but I don't let anything stop me from getting to the point in the story that I feel the most compelled to tell. The nice thing about that as well is when you are going back, the things that you wrote out by hand or wrote in that first draft, because you're not worried about filling every single key point, they tend to be the heart of the story, the emotional touchstones, the parts that you cared about the most when you were originally telling the story. So if you start editing later and you realize that those things aren't there, it's okay if they're not there because you decided it just really didn't work for the story, but you can look back and go, was this an emotional touchstone and something that I should focus on more, should expand on, should have everything lead up to, build up to, focus on. Having that original handwritten or typed draft with notes, it lets you know what was important to you while you were writing the story in the first place. And because you were writing it for yourself and not for anyone else, you can look back and see what part of the story mattered to you, and it can kind of help recenter you in your future drafts. That's all I have to say this time. I feel like I have rambled on long enough. If this was helpful, please give a lovely subscribe, give a thumbs up, and leave some comments in the comments. I am just getting started on this lovely YouTube journey, and I hope you will take it with me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Happy writing, happy reading. Mwah.